Welcome to today's session on types of fitness programs. What we're going to do today is have a look at all the different types of fitness programs you can give to your client. We're going to give you a basic overview of these programs before we actually take you into looking at writing specific strength training programs. As a gym instructor and a personal trainer, it's important that you actually meet your client's needs and goals. And it's not just about getting your client lifting weights or going for a run. It's also about helping your clients improve their stretching, their flexibility, managing stress, and really looking at the person's overall lifestyle to give them the best outcome for not only their health and their fitness, but for their life as well. So let's start off by looking at cardiovascular training. Cardiovascular training is all about improving our cardiovascular system. Now, traditionally, cardiovascular training is given to someone by getting them to do huffy-puffy exercise, such as going for a run, boxing, going for a bike ride. However, you can also challenge the cardiovascular system via doing strength training program as well. It certainly isn't the most effective cardiovascular training system, but it still can have a good effect on strengthening the cardiovascular system. So when we are challenging the cardiovascular system via training, what we tend to do is we tend to give a program, a weights program, where we're using the bigger muscle groups and we continually change muscle groups from one exercise to the next. So you may go from the legs to the upper body, from the upper body to the abs, from the abs to the legs. So what's having to happen is the cardiovascular system is having to work to pump the blood around the body from the different muscles in one exercise to different muscles in the next exercise. Although this is still resistance training, and you will get strength benefits from doing this resistance training program, it does challenge the heart to work a little bit harder than what it would do in a traditional resistance training program. You'll often see these sorts of programs in circuits where you can challenge the person to doing upper body, lower body, upper body, lower body. This again is not going to burn as much energy as, say, going for a run, but it's a different form of cardiovascular conditioning for the person. So our second type of cardiovascular training program is via getting your client to do a cardio workout. This can be done by getting them to go for a run, ride a bike, use the rower machine. They can even do classes such as Les Mills classes, cycle classes, or even do a basic boxing class. What it does is it targets different energy systems to work nice and hard so that the person is burning energy while they're actually training. Now, when you're writing a cardiovascular program, there are two different types of programs that you can write. You can write an aerobic cardiovascular program or an anaerobic cardiovascular program, depending on the type of workout you're wanting to give them. Now, you'll remember from your energy systems that the difference between aerobic and anaerobic is usually determined by the duration of the exercise. So a cardiovascular program that would hit your anaerobic system would be an interval type session where you might be doing a spinning class and you're doing 90-second sprints, then you're having a 2-minute break, then a 90-second sprint. Where a cardiovascular program to hit your aerobic session could be a spinning class where you're hitting a steady state for 25 to 30 minutes. Both cardiovascular programs, but they are targeting different energy systems and just working the body in a different way. And this is really important for you to understand if you want to get results for your clients, because you have to continually change the program to challenge the client's body to continually change shape. Now, our second type of program we're going to look at today is our resistance training program. A resistance training program is really challenging the muscles to do work, lifting a load. Resistance training program also is referred to as strength training. This can be done through free weights, machine weights. It can be done in the water with resistance bands. You can use body weight, fit balls, or any sort of implement that produces load on the body, whether it be kettlebells or whatever, it doesn't matter. When we're writing resistance training programs, there are a number of different types of programs that you can write. The first we're going to look at is a growth or a hypertrophy program. Now, this is training that's specifically targeted at increasing the growth of the muscle, getting bigger muscles. Now, research suggests that you need to do high intensity training for this to occur, and that ideally, if you work within a rep range of 8 to 12, it will create the best results for growth. This is all about time under tension and motor unit recruitment. So really, if you want to get the best results in growth, you want to work at a high level of intensity where you're challenging the muscles towards failure and you're keeping within a repetition range of 8 to 12. The second type of strength training program that we can do for our clients is actually a strength program. Now, I know this may seem strange, but when we are dealing with power athletes who want to create strength, we need to write a completely different program to those that we're generating for growth. When we're looking at strength programs, what we're doing is we're usually looking at the muscle's ability to generate the maximum amount of work over a small amount of repetitions. The prime example of this are the power lifters who do 1 RM or 5 RM. So 1 RM is repetition maximum, 5 RM is 5 repetition maximums. So traditionally, these programs focus on lower rep range but a much higher weight. They tend to work to what we call repetition maximum, where the person is failing at a specific rep range. We can also write an endurance training program. And an endurance training program is the ability of the body's muscles to continually do work over a long period of time. Now, depending on your desired effect will depend on the endurance, how long the endurance program goes for. So you can do an endurance program of 1 minute push-ups, or you can do an endurance program of a maximum amount of sit-ups. However, you can also look at more traditional endurance programs where you're looking at a 10-kilometer time trial or a 2-minute squat test. These programs, when we're looking at endurance training, will reflect the client's needs. So if you're training a client who needs the endurance to be able to hold a squat for 3 minutes, that's then what you will specifically target in your training. If you're dealing with an athlete that needs to be able to sprint 500 meters, then again you will work out the duration of that event and you will train them to that time frame, so then that way you're specifically challenging the energy systems required to complete that program. We can also write programs for speed training, and this is the ability to generate a muscle contraction at the maximal velocity possible. The way we can do that is by using implements such as speed ladders. We could do sprints, and we can also then do fast plyometric type contractions. Although plyometrics tends to move more into the power training, when we're looking at doing speed work, we have to consider plyometrics, because obviously if you're dealing with a long jumper or you're dealing with a sprinter, there is going to be a power aspect to the speed training. When we're looking at developing power training programs, we need to understand that power is speed times strength. So in developing a power program, we first need to have developed a strength program and a speed program, and then we bring these two programs together. For the purpose of power training, what we are trying to create is a maximal contraction as fast as possible. These sessions tend to use low repetitions of 1 to 4 RM because we're lifting a really heavy weight to create strength as fast as we can. The traditional exercises that you think about when you look at power programs are your Olympic lifts. However, you can also use plyometric type training, which is a lot of jumping and sprinting and bounding, for athletes that are on the field and getting ready to go onto the field, such as football players, basketball players. This helps them transition into competition phases where they have to do a lot of explosive jumps. We also have the ability to do agility training. Now, agility training is really important for athletes that need to change direction. So whether it be basketball, soccer or football, if you have a client that needs to change direction from side to side, forward or backwards, then you need to develop an agility program. When you're looking at doing an agility program, what will tend to happen is you will need to start off by working with the client on their balance, both static and dynamic, and also their coordination. So you may get them standing on one leg on a Bosu, you may get them standing on one leg on the floor to develop that balance. This will help strengthen the muscles and the nerves and the ligaments around the joints, so that when we actually start doing the exercises such as running side to side on a ladder or a diamond shuttle run, then their muscles that support the joints are ready for that change in direction and that change in load. The next type of program we can write is a steady state training program. This is a cardiovascular program that really looks at targeting their steady state. This is a program where the heart rate will tend to reach a position usually between 140 and 160 beats, and the person keeps their heart rate at that level of intensity for the whole time. The heart will stay constant and the person won't get a build-up of lactic acid because they're using their aerobic system. This is often seen when dealing with runners or cyclists and you're building them up to run longer distances. You want to keep them out of that lactic acid burn so the intensity is a little bit lower, but they can do it for a longer period of time. Interval training is completely different. This is a session where the person performs an exercise at a super maximal effort for a set period of time to overload that specific energy system. So you might be doing 1 minute sprints with a 30-second rest in between. You may be doing 2 minutes of boxing with a 45-second rest in between, and then you're repeating this 10 times. What this does is this challenges the person's energy systems, whether it be for 1 minute or for 2 minutes, to work as hard as it can, and then we give it a small amount of rest, and then we challenge it again. Ideally, interval training is done for your anaerobic system, for either your creatine phosphate or your anaerobic glycolysis, depending on what you're training the client for. If you're training the client for a game such as basketball or football where they have to go hard at it for about 45 to 60 seconds, then they get a little bit of recovery, then hard at it for 45 to 50 seconds, then they get a little bit of recovery, then this sort of training is really good because not only does it allow the person to go harder for that period of time that they're working, but it also makes the person more efficient at recovering, so they get better recovery so that they can actually last for longer. Your next type of training is known as your anaerobic threshold training. This again is a high intensity type of training where we're focusing on getting as much lactic acid in the blood and in the muscles as possible, so that way we can actually develop what we call lactic acid tolerance. Lactic acid tolerance is where the body learns to handle having lactic acid in the muscles, and it can continue to perform and can continue to generate work with the presence of lactic acid. An example of this would be 2 minutes worth of sprints, then give the person a little bit of a break, or an 800 meters flat out, then give them again a little bit of a break, or a 90-second jump squats. Now, the duration of the break will be determined by how much recovery you want to let the person have. Okay, so a longer recovery will mean that they have a smaller amount of lactic acid buildup. Where if you give them a shorter recovery, they'll have a greater lactic acid buildup, but what this will mean is you'll get more acidosis, which is damage to the muscles from the lactic acid, and hence the person will then take a little bit longer to recover from that workout. What will also happen is the shorter rest time in between sets, the lower the intensity will tend to drop in subsequent sets. So you need to think about what your desired effect is for the client. If your desired effect is for them to work completely fatigued, then you want to reduce that recovery period. Anaerobic threshold training is a specific training session in which the intensity of the exercise requires more energy than the aerobic system can generate. This then causes the anaerobic pathways to have to kick in to help produce energy for allow the person to complete the task. We can also train our clients to increase their flexibility. Flexibility is the absolute range of movement a joint or a series of joints can actually cause. Now, there are two types of flexibility. You have dynamic flexibility and static flexibility. Static flexibility is a program that you will write for your client where they will actually lay down and stretch themselves. Where dynamic flexibility is a program in which the client will do movements to increase their overall range of movement of the muscles. So you may actually take the client through deeper squats to improve the flexibility in the lower end of the squat. You may take your client through a deeper push-up to try and increase the flexibility through their shoulders. And these exercises aren't about load, they're more about range of movement. We can also do specific sessions or training to increase a person's stability. This type of training is specifically designed to challenge the strength of the joints to hold the joint in position during an exercise. So an example here may be doing a dumbbell press in comparison to a machine press. This requires a greater amount of stability. Getting a client to do squats on a BOSU. Not only will this work the muscles that cause the squat, but it will also work the muscles in the ankle, the hip and the knee that stabilize those joints so that you can actually generate the movement on the unstable surface. Doing a dumbbell press on a fit ball. This causes stabilization of the core and the spine and the shoulders. You can take this a little bit further and even do things such as push-ups on basketballs. You can do work where you're actually getting your client to stand on a disc or on a ball to actually challenge their joints to stabilize as you're working. The important thing here is you need to have a reason to do this type of training. A lot of this training can be more high risk, you're making your clients more susceptible to injury, so please make sure you can justify why you're doing this workout, and that when you're going to do these sorts of exercises that you've progressed your client correctly to make sure that they can actually do it. And we will teach you how to progress your clients to these sorts of exercises during the course of Certificate 4. There are rehabilitation training programs. These are specifically designed to help the client get back on track to normal functioning or as normal as possible. This can be injury. This can help clients recover from injuries, also increase range of movement and get the nervous system working correctly. As you cover exercise rehab in Cert 4, we'll spend a lot more time on these sorts of programs, as well as looking at neural activation training programs. Now, these sorts of programs are more advanced form of training, where what we're doing is we're assessing how the body's working and whether the muscles are working in the correct sequence across joints, so that we can then reprogram to get the body functioning correctly. So all of these are different types of programs that you can write for your clients. In Certificate 3, what we're going to get you to really focus on is more so writing strength training programs, cardiovascular programs, and endurance type programs. And then in Certificate 4, we're going to move you into some of the more advanced programs such as speed and power and also looking at the rehabilitation. As you move through these other sessions on programming, please make sure you follow our templates and our programming rules, so then that way you get a really good understanding of how we want you to program for your assessments. Thanks a lot.